Thank you very much, Dr. Roman, and it's truly my honor and privilege to be able to welcome and introduce to you our guest speaker this morning, Dr. Eddie Conner, Jr. But before I do that, I think it's really important for everybody to recognize OCC's Committee for Diversity and Inclusion for their work today and every day in making OCC aware of to create awareness and organize events around diversity as such as we're sitting here today. Now, I've got a real treat for everyone this morning. As most of you know, Dr. Conner is a best-selling author, college professor, international speaker, and radio and TV correspondent. A writer of 7 books, survivor of stage 4 cancer, and cousin to one of the world's most influential entertainers, the late great Prince, Dr. Conner is best known for his long-standing work empowering people to overcome obstacles. Dr. Conner has been featured and hosted on segments on BET, CBS, Fox News, NBC, PBS, the Steve Harvey TV show, the Todd Joyner Show, the World Network. He is also the CEO of the literacy organization Boys to Books, which provides mentorship to young males via literacy, leadership, and skills life enrichment. Work that is, of course, important to all of us here at the college. As an assistant to Representative Hanson Clark, their congressional resolution became the impetus for President Barack Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative. Dr. Conner is a 2016 recipient of the President's Volunteer Service Award from the White House. Dr. Conner grew up in Kingston, Jamaica, and is a proud resident of Detroit, Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Dr. Conner.
No one said the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought you this far to leave you now. Why don't you take both those hands and give yourself a round of applause for being here? Come on, you can do better than that. Come on, do I have some kings and queens in the house on Dr. King Day for this celebration? Listen, I'm so glad. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad, I'm grateful, I'm honored. I'm really humbled to have the opportunity today to salute and celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this special and auspicious Convocation celebration at Oakland Community College. You know, in 1991, the rap group Naughty by Nature had a hit record, OPP. Since I'm on campus, I'll remix it and say, are you down with OCC? See, you should have said, you know me. Can I do that again? Are you down with OCC? All right, I know I got some young people in here who are naughty by nature but have never heard of the group. But to the leader of this fine institution for higher learning, the erudite and esteemed chancellor, Dr. Timothy Meyer, to the interim president of this campus, Cynthia Roman, of course, as well to the associate vice chancellor, Mr. Jason Witt. And of course, I got to give a shout out to my dear brother from another mother, Mr. Jaquan Hawkins. I really appreciate the extended invitation and the opportunity to stand here today. To all the faculty, staff, and students assembled here, both near and far, who are also dually enrolled in between high school and college and being able to navigate both those parameters. I salute you and celebrate you. To all those in protocol, all those I don't know to call, to Lottie Dottie and everybody. It's good and it's great to see you today. You know, Dr. King said some years ago, he said, you can't call yourself a leader if you're walking and nobody's behind you. In fact, you're just out for a walk. So real quickly, just do me a favor as you're seated next to a leader and just give them a round of applause who's seated next to you. Give it up for the leader sitting next to you. Come on, don't hate, celebrate. Don't hate, elevate. You know, we really do have to celebrate one another because it's going to take each of us to empower all of us. Because we are the leaders that we've been looking for. And you know, today I know the elephant in the room is my baby face. I grew out the beard to try to hide it. And I know you're inquisitive about my age, so I'll let you know. I'm older than LeBron James, younger than Denzel Washington. So that clears it up right there. I'm straight out of the east side of Detroit. Warren and Conner represent. Do I have some cheerleaders in the house, some East Siders? So I dare not begin without greeting you in our native tongue and vernacular, known from the east side to the west side, from our city, both near and far. I greet you with the words, "What up, doe?" You know, this morning on this celebrated and auspicious occasion, I could stand up here and engage you in linguistic calisthenics. I could really stand up here and be intoxicated with the exuberance of my intellectual verbosity. I could endear you in a soliloquy about Plato, Socrates, Euripides, or even Aristophanes, but I didn't come for any of these names at all today. Rather, I came to transform your thinking to think outside of the box. You know, when you're dead, they're going to put you in a box. But while you're alive, you need to think outside of the box. And really what I want to do is flip the switch on your capacity and your mentality to focus with urgency. And so today, before you grab your phone to like another photo, before you grab your phone to tweet or even take yet another selfie, I want you for these few fleeting moments to think just beyond yourself. I want you to think about the many men and women, and of course, the life and legacy of Dr. King, who is one of the giants on whose shoulders we stand. And Sir Isaac Newton suggested that you can always see a lot farther standing on the shoulders of giants. So today I want to tag this theme with this title, "There's a King in You, Wear Your Crown." I know that title sounds very gender specific, so for the sake of not leaving out our elegant and beautiful leading ladies today, I really want to make it applicable, and you can say there's a queen inside of you. Because really, real men know that in order to really be a king, you can't do it without a queen. So, yes. So just look at somebody seated next to you and just tell them, I know we're not in church, but just tell them anyway. Tell them, wear your crown. Real quickly, just look at that person again. And as you're looking at them, I know it's uncomfortable. If you can't make eye contact, just look at the bridge of their nose. You won't look cross-eyed, I guarantee you. But as you look at them, I want you to think about everything that's wrong with the person seated next to you. Excuse me, Dr. Meyer, I just upset the equilibrium. I just made it really uncomfortable. Somebody said, no, you can stop now. You can stop, please. Somebody said, I need a little bit more time. I just found something. Oftentimes, we make the mistake of doing just that. We judge people before we even know them. We make false accusations and we stereotype people based on how they dress or how they look or where their background is from or how they enunciate or denounce their words. Oftentimes we make the mistake of doing that. And so often this time of year we hear glowing remarks about Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. And ironically, today is Friday the 13th. And the question becomes, how do you keep your dream alive when people from the White House to your house are living in a nightmare? On this day, Friday the 13th, it is not a day to live in fear, but the mandate is to walk by faith. Simply because fear paralyzes you, but only faith is what mobilizes you. And really what it does is it takes faith to keep your dream alive when everything is trying to crush your capacity and mentality to overcome the obstacles. Really, if we were to turn back the hands of time, I would take you to 1968, embroiled where our country is at the height of a civil rights movement. And in 1968, we're also embroiled not only in domestic war, but also we're embroiled in a foreign war on foreign soil with the Vietnam War. And right through here, Dr. King finds himself in a precarious position. Prior to Dr. King's death in 1968, towards the last few years of his life, Harry Belafonte, a noted singer, songwriter, and social activist, recalled sitting in a room with Dr. King. And Dr. King at this time was noticeably quiet, as he was seated in a room that was noticeably loud. And the pressures of the civil rights movement had weighed and mounted heavily on Dr. King's soul. Even as Dr. King was cut down by an assassin's bullet, the coroner suggested that even at the age of 39, Dr. King had a heart of a 70-year-old man. And Dr. King at this time became probed. He became a probe villain before being wiretapped by the FBI. In that meeting room, Mr. Belafonte recalls trying to get Dr. King's attention. And rather than look at Harry, King straightened in his seat, seemingly staring into an abyss, and bellowed in his iconic, slowed Southern Baptist drawl, "Harry, this work that we do is like running into a burning building." Those were the words of Dr. King. Ladies and gentlemen, the work that we do to transform lives should consume us to the point that we become critical thinkers in a chaotic world. The celebration of the man, the mission, and the messenger of Dr. King is about more than coming into this building and sitting down to listen. The mission and the message of Dr. King's life is more than just hearing a kumbaya speech and leaving with a very heavy heart. It's more than about what we do when we walk in this room. It's more than about what we do when we walk in this room. It's about really what we do when we leave these seats today. Because what we have to do is roll up our sleeves and make our community, our city, our nation, our school, our community, our class, and our world a better place. Look around you. Is not our society on fire? Much like that burning building that Dr. King was so ebulliently echoing about. When you seek to put one fire out, there's a multiplicity of other fires that spring up. So many times we have become removed from those who are in need of our help, that we can no longer feel the pulse of the pain of so many people who are oftentimes being consumed. And their lives are being swallowed up by the fires of poverty. Their lives are being swallowed up by inadequate education, dilapidated housing, crime, violence, illiteracy, ignorance, incarceration, and stagnation. And we must ask ourselves, what can we do together to join forces, regardless of racial identity or background, in order to provide sustainability to those bound by the manacles of oppression in our society? Dr. King expressed that life's most persistent and urgent question must be, what are you doing for others? Notice the question is not about how many followers you have on social media. The question is not about how much money you have in your bank account. The question is not about your bins and your friends, your money and your honey, your credit and your debit that probably still can't get it. The question is, what are you doing for the least, the lost, the left out, the last, the littlest, the overlooked, the underserved, and the underrepresented? Because something on the inside of us must burn so deeply with compassion that we care for somebody that we don't even know. It ought to cause you to catch on fire today. And oftentimes, our dreams are on steam rather than they are on boil. For these young people who are here today, I'll tell you that when I was in school, my favorite two classes were gym and lunch. You're going to get that next week. However, I had a chemistry class that I learned that water boils at water steams at 211 degrees, and it boils at 212 degrees. If you make that application to life, you see that it's just 1 degree difference from where you are to where you can be. It's just 1 degree difference from moving your dream from steam to boil. It's just 1 degree difference to where you can begin to catch on fire and do something great. Because we will either have a beloved community or a bemoaned catastrophe in our society. We will either live together as brothers, as Dr. King suggested, and sisters, or perish together as fools. Towards the end of Dr. King's life, he was not viewed as a patriot or a protector. In many cases, he was reviled and seen as a pariah or a predator. It's only in the last 30 or so years that America has decided to view a vilified Vietnam objector in Dr. King through rose-colored glasses, as a hero that hewed out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Dr. King's ultimate societal goal was the achievement of structuring a nonviolent, beloved community that would embrace those of various ethnicities and backgrounds to all be seated at the table of brotherhood. Because I believe that Dr. King understood that if you're not at the table, then guess what? You're on the menu. And oftentimes, our people are on the menu because they're getting devoured by those who have power but do not have a heart for the people who are under them. The work to create substantive change is like running into a burning building, because the main ones who seek to help and to save others are oftentimes the first ones who are consumed. Dr. King said poverty is the bride of crime. And oftentimes we look at the disease of violence. We look at the disease of mass incarceration. But today we have to unmask it. Because when we unmask it, we can peer into the symptoms and we'll see poverty, lack of education, dilapidation of communities, blight, gentrification, and redlining are just the symptoms that have created the disease. Question is, how do you convey the message of Dr. King to a technology-driven generation? How do you convey the message of Dr. King in a society perplexed by a digital divide? We've become so enamored and so inundated with technology being interwoven in our wired and wireless world. Some of you can't even go to the bathroom without your phone. Can't even sit at the table and have dinner without your phone. It's become really just a paradigm that has become so ingrained. And although we are connected, more than anything, we are disconnected more than ever before. The advent of social media has engendered a generation of many who are socially inept. They can text but won't talk. They know code but can't formulate a conversation. The only technology that many of our young people have in school is not a computer lab but a metal detector. Because we're living in an LOL, TTYL, GR8 generation. If you don't know what that is, you got to text the lingo later. You got to check out Google on your own. Because it's a generation of likes that is so void of the power of love. And our world is an ocean of information, but people are still drowning in ignorance. And only when we put application behind information, then we can do like Beyonce. And that is get information to really mobilize a movement. Because we live in a world of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube pages. We have iPods, we got iPads, we have iPhones, and it's an I, it's a me. It's not an us and a we culture. Rapper Lil Wayne rhetorically explained, he said, I'm all about I and give the rest of the vowels back. Dr. King never had an email address. He never had a cell phone. He never had a social media page. He never had access to many of our technological amenities. However, he and many others mobilized a movement through the power of unity. You say to yourself, well, what can I do to create some change in my community? The question is, if they did much with little, how much more can we do with the much that we have? Because to whom much is given, that much more is required. What resources will you use to create change in your school? What resources will you use to do something good in your hood? What resources will you use to uplift the masses? We can't allow people to freeze Dr. King's image to an episodic moment of August 28, 1963, to just the March on Washington, where he uttered his I Have a Dream speech. Because Dr. King was more than a docile dreamer. He was a doer. He was a freedom fighter. He was a trumpet of truth. He was a drum major for justice. He stood up to injustice, because an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Dr. King challenged our nation and the world in a greater context to come together. He spoke about the dream, but he also mentioned the nightmare. Because Dr. King suggested we can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of police brutality. And how oftentimes do we see in America vitriolic rage and racism that continues to perpetuate itself in our communities? How can we purport to be the richest nation in the world, as he suggested, and not take care of our own people? Dr. King affirmed that whatever you see is only an indication of the greater shadow that castigates itself, because he exemplified the essence of leadership. And leadership is not about how many people are following you, but leadership is about how many leaders you create. What leaders are you creating today? Leadership is not about what it says, but leadership is about what it does. And a leader is one who does not just get the accoutrements and the aggrandizement and the awards for applause, but a leader is someone who really rolls up their sleeves and works for a cause. Because Dr. King never had any of our technological amenities, but he asked, how can I do more with the less that I have? And oftentimes, you're doing more with the less that you have. Maybe there's inadequate love in your home. Maybe there's inadequate love in your community. Maybe someone did not embrace you, but will you embrace yourself? Will you embrace the greatness that you have on the inside of you? Will you wear your crown? Will you see the king that's on the inside of you? Will you see the queen that's on the inside of you? Because oftentimes we hear what's so negative and wrong about ourselves that now we begin to turn on ourselves and each other rather than turn to each other for our help and our great strength. Oftentimes we wear an S on our chest to where you think you're a Superman or a Superwoman, but oftentimes that S doesn't mean we're strong. Sometimes it means we're sensitive. It means we're struggling. But will you have the inner fortitude to look within yourself? Because more than 10 years ago, I faced that situation where I didn't see that I had greatness on the inside of me. Oftentimes, I didn't see that I had something valuable that was inside of me because I was diagnosed with NHL at the age of 15. I was experiencing a number of different chest pains, and as a sophomore in school, identity crisis means everything. Who you are, how popular you seem to be. And for me, as I experienced this great pain on the inside of me, I was taken to the hospital. And the doctors did a CT scan of the chest, they did an x-ray, and they saw in my body that my cells were growing so fast. As they cut me open, they could see them growing with the naked eye. Around my heart, around my trachea, around my esophagus, my voice box, the place I'm speaking to you out of today. Felt great coming out of surgery, and the doctor says, Eddie, we have a diagnosis for you. You have NHL. And right there, I thought I hit the lottery. I'd never played the Powerball, but for me, NHL meant National Hockey League. I said, I'm getting ready to be the youngest owner of a sport that I don't even play or like. He said, no, NHL is not National Hockey League. It means non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I said, Doc, my first language is Ebonics. I'm still trying to learn English. What do you mean? He says, Eddie, you have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 stage 4 cancer. I said, how do I have stage 4 cancer at the age of 15? I'm young, I'm black, I'm male, I eat more Skittles than strawberries. I eat more Butterfingers than blueberries, but why is that happening to me right now? He said, don't ask why. And oftentimes, we are living in a society that people are telling you not to be a critical thinker in a chaotic world. They're telling you not to question the system. They're telling you not to ask why anymore. Why is it that people don't have adequate housing? Why is it that we live in the richest nation in the world, but people can't even rub 2 nickels together to get a meal? Why is the question that you must continue to ask. And for the next 18 months, close to 2 years, I asked that question, why me and why now? I asked that question when my own biological father never visited me one day in the hospital. I asked why when you see these waves today, all my hair fell out of my head. People didn't think that I was going to overcome and make it. But even in my why, God created a way for me to overcome those obstacles, to see the first 3 letters in cancer spells what, y'all? Not just can, but you can overcome and you can survive. We're looking at individuals who are black, who are white, who are Hispanic, who are Asian American. And the last 4 letters in American, the last 4 letters spells not just can, but I can. Whatever race or persuasion or belief or background you are, you have to have that mentality that says you can think outside of the box. You can overcome the obstacles, because you have to say no more of the same routine in 2017. You've got to have dogmatic determination. You've got to walk into that classroom and not sit in the back, but sit in the front like you deserve to be there. Like you deserve to get an education, like you deserve everything that is placed on the inside of you, because you have greatness there. And it's argued that nobody in America did more in the last 50 plus years than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was one who believed in justice. He believed in freedom for all. He believed and spoke ardently in spite of hate. He perpetuated love. Dr. King spoke with unflinching honesty and undeniable authenticity. He became the moral conscience of America. He challenged our nation and even the world in a greater context, because he understood that the true measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of crisis, challenge, and controversy. When you face challenges, when you face crisis and controversy, you can't run from it, but you have to stand strong in it. Dr. King declared there is no solution through isolation, because he challenged us despite creed, despite race, or despite beliefs to come together, to stay together, and to work together, because coming together is a beginning. Staying together is progress, but keeping together is success. And our silence is betrayal to our brothers. Our silence is betrayal to our sisters who are struggling. You may say today, well, I'm not racist, but do you benefit from the tactics of racism? We must not only sympathize, but we must empathize with our brothers and our sisters to feel their pain and to bear one another's burdens, because racial understanding and unity is not by osmosis. It is not something that we stumble upon and find, but it is something that we must work together to create. Many of us did not come into this world to see that a productive and a happy life is something that we found. Rather, we find that it is something that we have to create. And the ability for different races and different backgrounds to come together must be created. Because what we must do is what Dr. King declared, and that is the black people hold the key to the double lock of peaceful change. But the other key is in the hands of the white community. And we must continue to lock ourselves out of opportunity. When we lock ourselves out of opportunity through disunity, we will never open the door and unlock the door to free ourselves for the future. In his book, Dr. King suggested, where do we go from here? Because is it going to be chaos or community? How can America say that it is what it is, but it does not agree to the mandates of what it has? He never attacked people personally, but he attacked the policies and the issues. He went to the root of the problem. He dealt with the heart of the matter. And just like Dr. King empowered others, you have to believe that you can too. Just like he stood up for ethics and equality, you have to say, I'm going to stand up for somebody else too. Because there's a king inside of you that challenges the systems of society. Young lady, there's a queen inside of you that will expand the parameters of your mind and the minds surrounded by those who are around you. There's a king in you that will dream, and not only dream, but take action. There's a king in you that will uplift communities and education and do something good in your neighborhood. There's a king in you that has compassion for the least, the lost, the left out, the disadvantaged. There's a king in you that will invent, that will inspire, that will imbibe power and purpose into the lives of others. We must dream, we must strive, we must do it better than anybody living, dead, or unborn could ever do it. And it's said that we will either be powerful or we will be those who are subdued by power. Too often times we're sitting on the couch watching power, but we don't have any. We're sitting on the couch watching empire, but we won't build one. This is your day to do something positive. This is your day to do something powerful, because we're caught in a wind. We're caught in a tailwind like Dr. King was when he was on a plane. But you have to use that same wind to move your life to go to the next level. You have to see that there's greatness that's on the inside of you, because you're too amazing to be average. You're too good. You're too great to be good. You're too extraordinary to be ordinary. You're not a whiner. You're you're a winner. You're not a worrier, you're a warrior. You're not a chump, you're a champion. You're not a chicken, but you're an eagle. And this is your day. This is your time to spread your wings and begin to soar, because there's a dream that's on the inside of you. I'm looking at new school Martin Luther Kings today. I'm looking at new school Coretta Scott Queens, because I see new school Malcolm next. And that's what you have to do. Be a critical thinker. Study your heritage. Study your history. Too many times we know more about Waka Flocka Flame than we do about W.B. Du Bois. We know more about Dr. Dre than we do about Dr. King. But this is your time to pick up the baton and run with your vision. Run with your dream. Run with your goal. Wake up and occupy the school. Wake up and occupy the campus. Wake up and occupy the community. Wake up and carry on the legacy, because the dreams of kings are inside of you. The DNA of queens lives on the inside of you. Frederick Douglass, Medgar Evers, invent like George Washington Carver. Knock out oppression like Muhammad Ali. Hit a home run today and break barriers like Jackie Robinson. Pick up the baton and run like a Jesse Owens. Look at the clock and recognize it's your time like a Benjamin Banneker. Let your ideas be ignited by a light bulb, ignited by the filament of a Lewis Latimer. You're a modern day Marcus Garvey, Nelson Mandela, W.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Stokely Carmichael. You come from kings and you come from queens. Be the rose that grows through concrete. Bloom where you're planted. Impact locally and influence globally. March on, because this is your time. Yes, we shall overcome. Take it. Run with the baton. We shall overcome in education, in empowerment, as we elevate, as we rise to the occasion. This is your day to live with purpose. This is your day to live on purpose and live for a purpose to empower the world, because there's a king inside of you, young man. There's a queen inside of you, young lady. There's a king and a queen in all of us. And this is the day to wear our crown. This is the day to run in and bring breakthrough to those caught in the buildings that are on fire, and come out stronger to say, this is not something that I'm just going to lay down and take, but this is something that I'm going to stand up and make the best of my life to overcome at OCC and beyond. Give yourselves a round of applause today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be inspired. Thank you so much. Don't just clap for me, clap for the leader seated next to you. Please be seated.